Well, I wanted to start this call today by just acknowledging that most people here are probably in some way, shape, or form sensitive, right? Maybe you're a highly sensitive person. Perhaps you are an empath. You are a intuitive, a creative, or a visionary. Maybe there's various ways that you self-identify. Welcome to you. It's just lovely to connect in with so many beautiful souls on this call, and I will hold space for questions and for actually doing some work around entrepreneurship in just a little bit. But I want to make sure that we can acknowledge what's real. And so obviously today, this afternoon, there was a really intense event that happened at the United States Capitol. And it is something that I think maybe a lot of people expected, that there would be something of this nature that went on. However, that doesn't sometimes make it any easier for us mentally, emotionally. A lot of empathic, intuitive people, particularly those who feel called to do sacred work, find themselves kind of in that category of being an activist, and so we speak up, we feel personal, we feel it on a personal level when things happen in our world, in our country, in our communities, in our family system. And that's a part of our strength, and it can also be a challenge for us. I call entrepreneurship, I don't call it work anymore. I call it sacred play. And that's because when you're doing something that actually lights you up, when you're engaged in activities and service that feels really meaningful and purposeful, that calls to your soul, it doesn't even feel like work. There was this sort of artificial barrier that we had put up as a modern culture. Like, you go to work and then you come home and this is all separate, right? And then there's spirituality, which, in some cases happens one day a week. And then there's like the rest of your life. And as time goes on, what I've realized is there's a merging, right? Where everything is sacred play, everything is spiritual. And this is the way that I live my life. So running my own business and mentoring empaths and lightworkers and mystics is not just something that I do. It is a passion, it is a calling, it is a great honor to be in this position and to do this work, as it would be for anyone, whether they're healing or coaching or helping people learn about herbal medicine, whatever it is that seems to be calling to each person that's on this call today. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're drawn to. What is sacred play to you? If you typed something into the chat or unmuted yourself and shared with the group just briefly, what would be considered sacred play? If you could just do anything and it didn't even feel like work, it just feels joyous and in flow and aligned, what would that be?
Hello.
Yeah, please join in.
For me, definitely healing. I feel the energy flowing through. And so definitely is something that's there all the time. So, amongst any other, I've done so many different types of jobs, but anytime that I do healing on anybody, it's very rewarding, I guess, suppose you could say, but it's just not so much for me, but just to see somebody feel that energy and feel relaxed and feel better afterwards. And sometimes it just could be that they feel relaxed and they even fall asleep while I'm doing that. So, but to hear sometimes a day or two later how they have felt, better, and, just everybody's a little different about how they feel it, but definitely the healing. If I could do that all the time, it would definitely be the best thing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I'll say is that, Ramel, is that there's probably ways that you are actually doing healing all the time. When you show up for people Even, even if you have a day job or a different kind of a career, it sounds like, rather than just the healing work, every way that you show up is connecting in that way. Every time you show compassion, you're helping people heal. So we think that the work, the sacred play, only happens when we like set aside time and we have an appointment and it's just happening with a client. But actually, it's in every single thing that we do is when it's happening. So whatever it is that you are called to do, I've discovered that people are already doing all of their sacred play. They've already been taking classes. They've already been reading books about it. They've already been, helping their neighbor, whatever that is that you feel called to. It's already been happening. You're even doing it if you still work like another job. You're even doing it then. I realize I have been coaching and teaching and mentoring and talking about conscious leadership and doing conscious business since I first started working. It didn't just happen over the last 5 years. So if you look back at the things that you're doing on a regular basis, you're probably already doing your sacred play, your sacred work. It's already right there. And Destiny says you would love to provide a service to assist low-income individuals is your calling. Initial help, but also assisting to better their situation. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that a lot of empathic people have told me in surveys and through coaching sessions is that, it's a struggle kind of being a part of the mainstream, capitalist system that we still live in. We have sort of one foot in that system. And then there are many people out there whose calling is to look at, are there other ways for us to connect, to do commerce, other than the way that we've been doing it. And it doesn't mean everything is bad and we have to throw everything out, but there are things about it that have been exploitive, or, there's a lot of wage inequality and we're seeing that. And so, how do we help, people who were either born into a low income situation? And I was one of them. My family was very, very, poor in terms of financial resources as a child, but very wealthy in terms of love. And so there were things that I had to learn and I had to overcome, if I will, in order to be a business person. And this is a really important piece. It's like, and being in that sort of poverty category, if you will, I don't know any other way to describe it that doesn't sound judgmental, because it isn't judgmental. It's like it's a perpetuating cycle, because you don't have resources, you don't have connections. You have to have, say, this thing in order to get this thing. You have to have a computer maybe to do online work, but you can't buy the computer, so then you can't have your job. It perpetuates itself. And so this kind of a mission to really help people move out of that cycle. I really do believe, quite honestly, through the spiritual work that I've done, is that we're meant to be abundant. And I do believe that there is actually enough resources for every human being on earth, if we decide to allocate it accordingly. And if we decide that we want to build a deeper sense of equity. So this is a beautiful, and very timely mission that you find yourself connected with, Destiny. I just think that it's wonderful. And then Janie says, sacred play is observing the awareness of love in all that is in each moment. Absolutely. So, today, when all of these events happened, I had conflicting emotions. I was like, well, maybe I should cancel. Maybe, it would be sort of heartless to like come on and talk about running a business in the middle of something like this happening in our country. And then I thought, I really want to honor my commitment. I really want to be there for people who expected to have this resource tonight. And so I thought, how can I do this in a way that honors what's really happening? And as I said, I'm willing to speak about whatever it is that's helpful to all of you in this moment. And that's about not going, it's all about me and I need to get what I need and I need to make sales and I need to do clients. I want to make sure that what I'm providing is of value. So as you make these choices in your business, there are times when you'll need to set a boundary, when you need to say, yes, I do need to receive, or I can only give this much. Actually, I did a video teaching today for the current members of my Wisdom Circle program about this very thing. When you're in this tension between getting your needs met and then needing to meet the needs of clients, and how to balance those two things. But what I love about what you're bringing, Janie, is that love is always the underlying decision making. I'm like, what is the loving, kind thing to do? What is the thing to do that will nurture and uplift people? And you know, you're always going to receive what you need if you come from that place in every given moment. So absolutely, Sacred Play is all about that. I primarily work with people who are just thinking about starting a business. Maybe you have a spark of an idea and you're not quite sure, how do I bring that into form? How do I take this little bit of an idea and make it into something that can financially nourish me, something that can be really beneficial to the people that I will serve? And in finding the middle ground between those three pieces is what the first year in business is all about. It's really about setting that foundation and creating a really strong understanding of practical tools that you need to run a business. Things like how to do market research, how to find your clients, how to create a beta test, to test out your idea before you spend, hours and hours on it and maybe just launch to like crickets, right? And it can be very disappointing to do that. So we talk about the really practical, kind of earthly, grounded aspects. And then we talk about the spiritual realm, which is, gosh, what if I feel like an imposter and, oh, I'm so worried about having to be visible? Wow, you mean I have to actually write a blog or be on video or put myself out there? And this is one of the biggest things that highly sensitive and empathic people struggle with, is being visible. And I totally get that, because I was basically an introverted hermit in my house for many, many years. And then my discovery of my gifts actually like brought me out. And it's been a process. It's been a process. You don't go from 0 to 100. You don't go from being a hermit to hosting a global summit overnight. It's a process. You do it step by step. You practice, just like anything else we've ever learned, right? You do a little bit at a time, and then you build mastery. And so that's what this is really about, is learning how to take this idea and move it into something that can actually start to help others, and you can actually receive the financial abundance in exchange for your gifts. So what else comes up for all of you as we talk about this? I'd love to just share anything that you want to know about being an entrepreneur. Maybe there's things you've seen online and you're like, what about that? What does that mean? Or is that true? Yeah, just lay it on me.
Hi, this is Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
I had a question. What if you don't know what your sacred play is yet, but you know that you want to shift into a more entrepreneur field?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's a great question. One of the things that I encourage people in my mentorship to do is to reflect back on anywhere that you have overcome obstacles in your life. Maybe something that you had to work through, whether that was relationships or health, or even if it was something that you worked really hard to achieve and then you gained that skill and gained that mastery. This is a clue to what you can offer first. It doesn't mean you have to offer it forever. It's just a starting place. In the beginning, you just need to have one offer. And then you learn from that. You go out there, you invite people to work with you, you promote yourself, and then you see how it works. And then you find out, okay, maybe the marketplace is shifting a little bit. I want to shift too. I'm going to do this. And so it's just a starting point. It's a point of inspiration. So what I say is that any place that you have struggled and overcome challenges and you know what that journey looks like, it's like there's a few people who are just a few steps behind you on the path. And literally you're just reaching your hand back and you say, I've just been there. I can show you where the potholes are, where the tree fell across the road, and maybe make it a little bit easier for you to get there that in a way that wasn't so much trial and error. And that's literally what you can start with, is something like that. So, or something you're really passionate about. You know, I have one client in the program right now who loves forest bathing. So the Japanese have really done a lot of research on the benefits of walking in the forest, and she actually does coaching sessions with clients out in the forest and is developing an entire, program around that. So you can take something you're just super passionate about, even if you don't know how to do it very well yet. This is the part where you invite people in and you say, I would love for you to try this out, and I'll do it for you for free to start with, and in exchange for your feedback, and maybe you give me a testimonial at the end. And then you have something that you can put on social media or on, like a single page website. You can start very, very simply, or maybe it's a LinkedIn profile. It's just like, you can actually ask people, like, share with me what it was like to work with me. You can do that one-on-one, or you could do that with a small group. And so you start very simply, and then you work your way up. And it's okay to pivot and adapt and change it up. And then maybe you've done it for 6 months and you're like, nope, don't want to do that anymore. I want to try something else. And that's okay too. Being an entrepreneur is a lot about innovation and experimentation. That's one of the things that we really practice in this first year, is experimenting and trying different things without being too attached to, like, whether it's going to, bring you 6 figures. There's a lot of, like, all of that stuff out there, right? At the beginning, you're just trying to learn, what is it that you have to offer? Who are your potential clients? How do you reach them? What is the initial message you're giving? And then you're putting together one thing that you can offer, and then you're trying it out with a number of people, and then seeing what happens, and realizing, yes, this is working. No, this piece isn't working. Okay, I want to change it a little bit. And then you go from there. I hope, Leslie, that helps you to not feel so much pressure.
No, that was very helpful and very comforting. Thank you very much.
Because I think we think, like, oh, I have to have this whole business structure together. I need to write this 5-year business plan. Well, as an intuitive person, I don't do anything for 5 years. I allow it to unfold and show myself. Sometimes I get inspiration because I've done a tarot reading in the morning, and I'm like, oh, that's a really cool concept. I'm going to turn that into a video. And that's how it happens. And I just flow with it. And then I go down a certain path, and then everything kind of seems to stop, right? And it's like, no, that's not the right fit. So I back up and I go down a different path, and then it starts to flow again. So it is a lot of experimentation, and I actually find that fun because then it doesn't get boring and stale to do the same thing over and over all the time. So Janie says, being in the 20% of being super empathetic, at times I wonder if I can help groups and the masses. I've worked one-on-one with many miracles. Excellent. I found a group or public speaking can be very challenging. What suggestions do you have? Autism, shaman, and spiritual teacher is who is present in my beingness. Thank you for letting me be authentic. Absolutely, absolutely. Some people are really nervous to do one-on-one work because it seems like a lot of pressure to be right there face to face. And some people are more nervous doing group work. It just depends. And that's completely normal and natural, right? And then you think, okay, when I'm in a group and I'm up there teaching, maybe I need to be the expert. Maybe they're all going to be sitting there and expecting me to have all the answers. What if I, don't know what to say in a moment, or they ask me something that I can't answer? Of course, all those things could happen. But what I say about being in leadership is that really great leaders realize that they are there to be a guide and a facilitator rather than the guru. So I'm not into gurus. I don't want to be a guru. I'm just sharing what I know. And I learn just as much from my clients, I think, as they learn from me as I go through this process. So when you decide to do a group, first I would say start small. My very first group was like 3 other people and myself. There was only 4 of us. It was very small. I charged a small amount just so that I, could get that experience and have them come in. And yes, I was nervous to get on the call. I did groups in person, and I also have done groups online. And, you work your way up to it. I would choose a topic, if you're going to do a group workshop, that you're already really familiar with. So if you're going to do your first group, you don't also want to start with a topic that you don't know very well. You want to do a lot of research so that you feel confident going into that you pretty much have things going. And then the beautiful thing about it is as you're watching me facilitate this, and I am an extremely sensitive person. I am an empath. I'm an introvert. I sense all the energy and so forth. So yes, being visible, being seen, being at the front of the room can feel a little nerve-wracking and scary at the beginning. But if you start small with a topic that you're really good at, maybe even with people who already know you. So what I suggest to new entrepreneurs is, when you do your beta test, when you're going to do your free or low cost offering, just to see how it goes, you invite people who already know you, people who would be similar to your desired clientele, but people who aren't going to go, man, I can't believe you just really sucked. I mean, you don't need that. That's going to be more detrimental, right, to you in the beginning. So you really want some people who you know are probably going to be loving and kind. And you can set that expectation that I would like this feedback to be constructive, and that kind of thing. But you watch what I'm doing here, where I'm talking some, but I'm also opening up the conversation, and I'm asking for people to share and to give questions, because it makes the experience richer. So hardly anyone wants to sit in a workshop for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours and just listen to someone sit at the front of the room and talk. That kind of takes you back to like elementary school, right? So how can you make it engaging? How can you do interactive work? Can you divide them up into groups of 3 or 2 people, and you give them a question and they discuss things, and then they come back and they talk about their experience. There's lots of ways to do groups which are much more engaging than just standing and teaching in front of the class. You can totally translate those kinds of miracles that you do with one-on-ones into a group program, because I guarantee that someone who asks a question or makes a comment in the group, somebody else in the group wanted to know the same thing. They just didn't realize that they wanted to know the same thing. Yeah, now it's about getting out there. All right, let's talk about that a little bit, because when I talked about visibility, I saw some faces on the screen go, oh. And the truth of the matter is, when you first start a business, you are going to do more work marketing yourself than you will probably serving clients. I mean, unless you're already really, really connected into the work that you do. A part of what's needed is for you to tell people, hey, I have a business. I'm providing this service. I'm out here. And it takes a while to kind of build up that energy. Now, I know right now, of course, with the pandemic across the world and quarantining and all that, it's a little more difficult to do in-person networking, although I think we will get back to that at some point. But, the world of business has really changed, and, almost every single person is online. Almost every single person is on some type of social media platform, whatever their chosen one is. And one of the things that we talk about in the Wisdom Circle program is how to choose a platform. And you want to choose an online platform that works for you. If you love to do video, then maybe something like YouTube or Vimeo is going to be a good suggestion. If you're already on Facebook, if you already have a lot of personal contacts, just because you've been on there for a while, for example, that might be a good place. It's really assessing, where are your potential clients going to be hanging out? If you're doing something visual or creative, maybe something like Pinterest, or a site that highlights the visual part, or Instagram. So it just depends on what it is that you're deciding to offer. If you're offering something, say, in the corporate training business world, and I'm actually doing a workshop this Friday for a corporation in New York City on conscious business, on procrastination and avoidance. And this is new for me, so I'm excited to do this. But, you might be networking with other platforms or on LinkedIn. So it really depends. You can start slow. what's most important about being visible is being authentic, right? So there's a lot of marketing that we see out there that is like slick and kind of telling people what they want to hear, or manipulating people, and they're psychologically, emotionally manipulating. I don't intentionally engage in any of that. I talk about my own experiences. As I said, if you're choosing to do something as your sacred play in your first offer that that represents your personal experience, an obstacle you overcame, then you want to talk about that. In whatever way there's appropriate levels of vulnerability, I guess, and I've seen even people in this conscious space, like pushing that boundary where they'll just say anything. And, I was a very private person, and I still can be, but I actually, through my blog, I actually wrote things that were extremely vulnerable about my past history with relationships, about codependency, about my health, various things. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I wrote that. But what happens is you're going to have some people who will show up and read or watch and say, you just spoke directly to me. It happens almost every week for me now, because I've written and I've spoken enough. And that's when you know that you're attracting in the people who could be working with you. It's just this process of slowly allowing yourself to unfold and figuring out, where do I need to market myself? What are the right connections to make? What do I want to be talking about? And in the beginning, you're just being consistent. Maybe once a week, you put out a video, you record a podcast, you put out a blog post, and you just begin to start talking about this thing that you're really passionate about. And then slowly people begin to follow you, and they begin to comment. And then you comment back, and you start this dialogue, and this is how it gets moving and grooving. So I hope that's helpful. Getting out there, being visible is a process, but it is necessary, because to think that magically somehow a bunch of clients will just show up at your door when they don't know what you're doing or what you have to offer or how you take them on a particular journey and get an outcome for them, you have to market yourself. And you can either go, oh, that stinks, and I don't want to do that, and have a really bad attitude about it. And what will probably happen is your business will reflect whatever vibration you have towards marketing. Your business will reflect that. If you're resistant to it, and it's okay to be resistant to it, your business will reflect that. And when you open yourself up and you say, you know what, this is a part of my sacred play too. Marketing is a part of me giving and serving. There are, probably hundreds or thousands of people that have read my writing or watched my videos, and they've never paid to work with me. And yet I have made a difference for them. And that's a part of why I'm here. And so if I don't get resentful about that, if I just say, this is what I get to do, I get to blog about being an empath, I get to talk about conscious business, I get to influence. And I believe that enough people will then come in to work together and to deepen that relationship. So yeah, your attitude towards marketing, your attitude towards managing your finances for business, it all matters. And we have these things, right? These shadow things that we need to work on, and it's okay. It's okay. This is part of what I do in the Wisdom Circle, is that we work through 12 different themes throughout the year. And the very first third of the program is about doing your self-reflection and really going in deep and understanding what it is that you have to offer. And the second half is experimenting and doing that market research and learning what it is that people need, because it's this combination, right, between what you have to offer, what people need, and what they'll pay for and what they perceive the value. And you're trying to find that sweet spot. So that's what this first year is all about.
Hi, Bevin. How long have you been doing this?
Yeah, so I've had a business now for 5 years. I launched my business in 2016. I actually started teaching empaths and mystics almost 8 years ago. I had a spiritual awakening back then, and I discovered that this was a part of who I was. I mean, I was always an empath. I was always intuitive. I just didn't have any words or names or research or any understanding of it. I just kind of had tried to shut that down. And so what I did is I created a meetup group here locally in Dallas and invited people into my living room. And I started doing these workshops. So as I was learning about our traits of sensitivity, of being an empath, I was teaching others. And people started coming up to me after the event and asking me personal questions like, what should I do here and here? And I thought, maybe I should become a coach. Maybe this is my calling. And at the time, I was a landscape designer. I worked for a major corporation. I was working like 60 hours a week. It was so very, very different than, doing this spiritual teaching on the side. I was serving clients on the weekends and in the evenings and still working my day job. And then I basically negotiated with my day job to go part-time so that I could run my business more. And then at some point I was able to tender my resignation. So I say that it takes about 2 to 3 years of dedicated regular work on a business to make it fully financially sustainable. It could go quicker if you're pretty connected. Or if you, for example, have the savings like for a year's worth of expenses to be able to quit your job and do that, or you have a significant other, somebody you live with who's like saying, I'm willing to do that piece. And then you can really focus your time. Really, your business will grow as fast as the amount of time that you spend on it and the amount of attention within reason. You still need to have time off. You still need to have downtime. You still need to relax, just like any other job, there is always another list of something to do as an entrepreneur. And in the beginning, you're going to do almost all of it yourself. And so there's definitely always something to do. But yes, my business has been in place for 5 years and about 2.5 full-time now. If anyone would like to talk with me just one-on-one, I'm offering 30-minute discovery calls right now. This is a free discovery call. And when I say it's a discovery call, I just mean that's what it is. It's not a heavy-duty sales pitch. I'm not going to try to convince you or strong-arm you into doing anything. I love to meet people. I want to hear about your vision, what's interesting to you, what questions you have about being an entrepreneur, what fears you have. And then, we can see if the wisdom circle is the right fit. And if it's not, I have other colleagues who do things as well, and I'm happy to refer you on. So, and I respect that everyone can make their own decision and can trust in their own knowing. But if this is interesting to you, you're welcome to join in. I am taking calls until January 20th. The program actually begins on the 24th. So, and I don't open it, I only open it every 6 months just so that I can focus in on the clients who are in the program and be really present to them. So if this appeals to you, if it's interesting to you, you'd like to talk with me personally, you're more than welcome to do that. One thing I would like to encourage all of you to do is to tap into this channeled message that I received in meditation a couple of months ago. And the words that I heard was, we came here to master self-trust. So if there is something that's calling you, something that you really want to do, something, a change that you want to make in your life, a way that you want to serve, regardless of what resource you seek for that, or if you go out there and you just start, I just encourage you to listen to that. I'm so glad that I listened to that. It changed my life, quite frankly. Deciding to do this work changed my life. And, understanding that there really are no wrong choices. Whatever we decide, we're going to learn from. So if you've always wanted to do that, if you wanted to write that book, if you wanted to get a certification, if you wanted to open a healing center, if you want to help low-income people like move out of survival mode, like try it, do it. Regardless of what happens, you are going to learn something about yourself. You are going to make a difference for the people that you serve and that you touch. Trust yourself. That would be really my final advice, is just try it and see what happens, because miracles come about when we decide to take that leap.